Cue intro.
You need to cut it. Jeez. Wow.
And
I'm
there's
the
the
only
intro.
one unsaved here.
I know. I know what you're talking about. It's
Wait.
getting way too hot.
You need to cut
it. Cue the intro. Welcome to the Gotta House podcast. Gotta House is a ministry where we create biblically sound, spirit-filled environments. This podcast in particular is meant to create conversations about on the platform, and everything in between. I'm Juan. Join with me here on the couch is
Josh.
Mel.
Katie.
Today we're talking about my testimony.
Why did you scream that intro?
Tell me to start over?
No. I just asked why you screamed the intro.
I
I
like
don't
the
know.
bass note that you hit when you said, my testimony.
The zoomies kind of kicked in just now.
Do you want to know something that we used to do at Church 52?
Do it. Tell me.
There was a small segment of time where we sang my testimony, except we sang the chorus in Spanish.
Esto es mi testimonio. Something like that. I
En
think.
salvación.
Me, yeah, go on.
I don't know. Son historia me perdonó por medio de la cruz crucificó. Este es mi testimonio. Este es mi testimonio.
Wow.
And then we stopped doing it, and I was like, "Oh, why did we stop doing it?" And he said, "Because we don't have anyone who speaks Spanish at our church."
Valid. Like, esto es mi testimonio de redención.
Okay, so first of all,
Dime,
be
Melanie, por favor.
I sang it correctly when we sang on stage. I already knew that I was mispronouncing half the words and not saying the correct words, so I was like, I'm not going to sit here and further mess it up in front of my Spanish-speaking friend. And so, yes, I did not try super hard on but I am sorry if that offended you.
I feel very offended.
I wasn't.
In
So
fact-
okay.
Oh, why is it okay, Katie? Can you tell me why? Why is it okay
We
for
already
you
had
to...
that discussion.
Is it because you... For those that maybe are like, Juan, we heard your testimony already. That is very correct. On another podcast called Image Bearers Podcast, go ahead, check them out. Shout out to my friend Lacey. She's super cool and awesome. And she's also a friend in the ministry. So check out all of her stuff. But to kind of recap a little bit of that stuff, plus get into some stuff that I didn't talk about on that podcast, I'll give kind of like quick spark notes. Born and raised in the faith, born to a very Bible-heavy Puerto Rican, Guatemalan, Jamaican dad, and a very prayer-heavy, very church-going Guatemalan mom. A little sister growing up, she was my best friend, knew everything about my life. Unfortunately, my parents, they got divorced when I was 18 years old. It was a very messy divorce, and it resulted in a season. It was about 3 years where I was questioning my faith, my church lingo, my background, everything that God spoke about over my family, over myself. And it led to a lot of angry conversations with God in those 3 years, of which God never answered a single question that I had. But instead, as I look back, he opened up a lot of doors that I knew were him that were opening these doors. But I also know, because of my experience growing up, if I didn't walk through those doors, it was going to be very nasty, very no bueno for me. A lot of doors being opened to me in regards to being connected to a lot of amazing people who I have no right or reason to know, let alone be friends with. People that mentored me, shepherded me, discipled me, that took me under their wing, corrected me when I needed correction, because I was a very angry kid growing up. Like, they were just so patient. They were so kind to me. And I'm forever grateful to those folks. And you know exactly who you are. So God bless you. Truly, you've impacted my life in ways that I am forever grateful to. Fast forward those 3 years, I am getting kicked out of college twice now at this point. I've gone on a Native American reservation for a missions trip. In New Mexico, I went to a missions conference in St. Louis, Missouri. I was in Guatemala for a month being an English teacher. I was in Puerto Rico helping out with hurricane relief for Irma and Maria. And it was at that missions trip where I had a coming to Jesus moment, like truly having an encounter with God for myself, where it wasn't like a thing at a church or anything. We were coming back from doing construction at a church to our campsite, and our guide, who was on the bus with us, starts announcing to the whole group saying, hey, I just got the phone with the airlines. They told us that they cancel all flights tomorrow. You guys are going home. And everyone's freaking out, calling family and friends and all this stuff. And I decide to go sit by myself, go find a bench, and I sit. The sun's coming down, the palm trees everywhere. It's Puerto Rico. So I'm there sitting on this bench, and I'm having like no one's around me. It is just me and the Lord just there sitting. And it's the first time in those 3 years that I'm not upset. I'm not angry conversations. It is just an heart to heart with myself, heart to heart with the Lord. And I said, okay, could I die in Puerto Rico? And I looked around me and I said, yeah, I could die. And the follow-up question was, am I okay with that? And it was almost like in the book of Job when the presence of the Lord met Job. And after Job is like calling God out. And the Lord is showing him all the intricacies of the universe down to the smallest details. And basically showing his dominion over everything. My Job moment was I saw every instance when the Lord opened the door in my life. And what would have happened had I not chosen that? The amount of times I would have been dead on the street, a drug addict, in jail. And I was so overwhelmed and awestruck by what I saw that I got on my face and I started like bawling and screaming and wailing out to God. Just in recognition that like how much he cared about me and protected me. And while I'm crying, while I can barely understand myself, I said, you protected me. You loved me. Despite my arrogance, despite my pride, despite my stupidity, you cared for me this much. Lord, if this is what it is to serve you, let your will be done. If I leave this world serving you, let your will be done. As soon as I made that declaration to myself, I felt like lightning was moving all around my body. I felt this confidence over me, this empowerment, this emboldenment, like nothing can stop me. I'm walking like with just a different walk and posture back to my group, ready essentially meet my maker. And I called my mom, my dad, my sister, basically saying goodbye to them because I thought I was going to die. That phone call to my mom specifically was the beginning to what would later become reconciliation between me and my mom. And then my dad, he said he was proud of me. My sister, we've always been close, but that one, her just crying over the phone and wrestling with like that being the reality at that moment really hit me in a way I wasn't expecting. So after I do the phone call to my family, I go up to the group, I go up to the guide, and everyone's talking and like giving commotion or whatever. I'm like, hey, what's going on? And this and that, whatever. And the guide's like, oh, yeah, the thing that I said, yeah, I was joking. Uh-huh. Oh. I need to call my parents back real quick. and I had to call my mom, my dad, and my sister and be like, hey, so remember when we thought I was going to die? Psych. I'll see you tomorrow. Oh, goodness. But man, after that, I still felt this itch I couldn't scratch, right? Like that confidence. And I'm like, what do I do with this? So I reverse transferred to a community college just so I could talk to young adults about Jesus. And I take a bunch of bogus classes. I fail all the classes, but I go to the dining hall and I use Uno cards to like round up a bunch of young adults to like start Uno matches in the dining hall and use that as an evangelistic tactic to like talk to people about Jesus. And it would be so dumb sometimes. I'd be like, yeah, so like, what's going on with family? Like, everything good with y'all? Like, how's your week been going? And it'd be like, oh man, I got this test coming up. Or like, hey, I got this thing going on with my dad and this and that. But hey, like, I'm a Christian. Like, I pray for stuff. Can I pray for you real quick? Like, yeah, you know what, bro? Yeah. And I'm like, you know what, guys? Let's all pray for him real quick. And like, just like doing something like that. And I think like 3 people came to Christ because of those Uno matches. And there was like this group called InterVarsity Christian Fellowship that apparently got wind of the weirdo that was evangelizing with Uno cards at College of Lake County. And they hunted me down and they found me. And they're like, you need to tell us your testimony now. And I'm like, I got to go to class, but let's talk after. So we go to, it was a corner bakery, and I tell them my whole testimony. And they tell me about the missions conference that I just spoke about. And that they said it wasn't a coincidence that the year, because it only happens once every 3 years. But the year that I went to this college is the year that this conference was happening. And I said, Juan, we want to sponsor you. We want to like help you raise funds for this and that. I'm like, okay, cool. Long story short, I didn't pay a single dime. I didn't even pay for my gas, like to go. It was in St. Louis. Everything was taken care of by God's grace, and to the generous donors. Also, shout out to you guys. Met amazing people from all across the country, all across the world that I'm still tight with. That's where I also discovered about just the world of missions that I was not exposed to. Like the 1040 zone, for those that don't know what that is, it's Here's the equator, 10 degrees north, 40 degrees south. That whole stretch of the globe, that's about 7,000 cultures, about 3 billion people that don't know the gospel, no church. It's illegal to share the gospel there. Only 2% of missionaries in the world go there because it's dangerous. You can go to jail. You could get killed. All the things. I was almost going to go to that. The Lord shut that door real quick. From that door shut, I began having conversations with folks in California about trying to be a part of a worship collective out there through a training program called Circuit Riders. As I'm trying to save up money for that, just nothing was happening. Door was shut. That while that door was shutting, the pastor was talking to me about trying to put all my focus on traveling to Spain and doing missions full time there. And as I'm saving up for that, I was carless, so I picked up a job at a Boys and Girls Club 20 minutes from my grandma's house. I was living with my grandma at the time. So I walked there just as I'm like really getting things going and there's momentum and steam happening for Spain. COVID hits and cancels all my travel plans, cancels everything going on there. Instead of me sulking and being sad like I did first time I came to my grandma's house, I decided to use all this time that I had just sitting in my house and in my bedroom to do a lot of music content, a lot of Jesus content, and it was getting a lot of attention from a lot of churches, in-state and out-of-state, particularly a guy that I met 2 years prior through just a worship event that we didn't really stay in touch. He reached out and was like, hey, like, I love your content. I love what you're doing for the Lord. I love your drumming. Let's connect, bro. Let's get ice cream and this and that. And for those that know that story, this is my homeboy Carmelo. Shout out to you, Carmelo. And after that one time we got ice cream at Kenosha, Wisconsin, at Scoops, then we became inseparable for like months. Like one weekend he'd be with me the entire weekend at my grandma's house. One weekend I'd be with him at his house in Kenosha. And we just do a lot of ministry together, do a lot of life together. Whenever he would travel, he'd bring me along. Whenever I travel, I'd bring him along. One of those travel opportunities was to Indianapolis, Indiana, to a women's conference in October of 2020. There's a song called Glorious by BJ Putnam that's like got a really cool like drum part at the end that apparently none of those guys have ever seen anyone pull off in person. And I did it, and they recorded it, and it blew up on social media. And it got me from, I think at the time I had like 800 followers or something to like 2,500. And people from like the whole East Coast, the entire Caribbean, heard about me. And they're like, oh my gosh, that's Abner's drummer. Abner's the guy that did the event. Shout out to you, Abner. And he liked me. And everyone that was there thought it was really cool. And he asked me if I wanted to drum for him whenever we go on tour. And I said, sure. And I traveled more during COVID than before COVID, which is wild to me. One of the states we landed at was Texas, Houston, Texas, where I got to walk into Joel Osteen's church the first day that I was there in Houston. We were like on the highway, me and Carmelo, we drove there. We stopped in St. Louis, then Memphis, Tennessee, then Little Rock, Arkansas, and then we were in Houston. And we were on the highway, we saw the sign, and we're like, hey, bro, like, should we go in? And they're like, yeah, let's do it. And then we got off the highway. We didn't realize we parked in the staff parking lot. So, like, we parked in the staff parking lot. We walk in. The secretary is right there at the front. And I was like, hey, we're from out of state. This is our first time in Houston. We're wondering if you could, like, let us walk around the church. The secretary's like, yeah, sure. We're like, what? Literally, they just let us walk through a metal detector. And we're no supervision, no security. We're walking around this whole church, bro, and we're like walking into like the main sanctuary, which is it's a football stadium. Yeah. Like we're walking in that place. The platform is right here, and I'm like looking at Carmelo. I'm like, should I get up there? He's like, do it. And I was like, no, I'm not gonna do it. And we go to the kids ministry. We walk to the basement. We see the statue of Joel Osteen's dad commemorating him. It was crazy, dude. So then after that, we do our whole event there. We're there for a week. They let us stay at a house, all 15 of us from the worship team. They gave us a house to stay the whole time. And that week, I come to find out, Abner, someone prophesied to him, confirming a prophecy he got for years now, that he needed to move from New York, where he was living at, to Indianapolis, where he grew up, to a pastor's dad's church. Also, Carmelo, he got also called to move to Indy to be their MD. To this church. He was like, man, my friend's gone. I'm losing this job. But you know what? It's whatever. I'm going to Spain anyways. And as I'm talking with Abner in the kitchen, it's like 11 o'clock. We were just like talking about life and whatever and just like what's going to happen next. And he looks at me funny. And he's like, Juan, I think the Lord has plans for you in Indianapolis, and I want you to move in with me. Mind you, I've known this guy like 5 months. Like, we're not friends at that time. He's my boss. But the fact that he said that, and he said it with such conviction, it shook me. And I'm thinking in my head, like, could this be God? And I'm like, nah, ain't no way. I'm going to Spain. Dump all of this. But it just kept ringing in my head and just thinking about it. And I was like, man, okay, I'll pray and I fast about it. And I prayed and I fasted for a month. I did not hear anything from God for a month. So I ended up calling aunt of mine in Guatemala, who's known for prophecy, lives up in the mountains, knows nobody's business. Her name is Paola. And I called my Aunt Paola through WhatsApp. And I'm like, hey, tia, I have, in Spanish, I have a petition from the Lord. Can we pray together? Tell anything else, just because I was like, this is God. He's going to reveal everything to her. And she's like, yeah, mijo, no problem. So then we start praying. She begins like speaking about very specific conversations I had with Carmelo, with my pastor, with my mom, like things that no one else was in the room for. And I'm like, okay, so this is clearly God. Okay, cool. And then at the end of it all, she goes in Spanish, the Lord says yes to the journey ahead of you, yes to the journey you don't want to take. Okay, all right. So I call my grandma, my mom, my dad, my sister, my pastor, and I said, hey, remember this like 1.5 year long plan that we've been doing, like to go to Spain and for me to do missions? Yeah, we're going to cancel all of that. And in 8 weeks, I'm going to move to Indianapolis, Indiana. And they're like, oh, what are you going to do out there? I don't know. What's your game plan? I don't know. What church are you going to? Maybe this one. I don't know. What job you got? Maybe DoorDash. I don't know. Just like no plan, no nothing. I just knew God was sending me. So I'm like, okay, cool. Then I get invited to the Dominican Republic with Abner. We're out there for a month. And it's there that I tell him that I'm moving to Indy. And he calls his dad. Dad's giving me a bunch of crazy, like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, this is going to be so great. You're going to help develop a worship school. Like, we're going to, like, take care of you and this and that and whatever. And I'm like, okay, great. Like, this is cool. Job security, housing security, a lot of this stuff I've already been kind of doing already here in Chicago anyway. So, cool, whatever. And I get to be with my friend now. So I move with all the clothes I can fit in my 2003 Acura RSX, which for those that don't know, very small car. Love it. And my twin-size bed that I had since I was 10 years old.
For those who don't know, it's a twin-size bed.
I drive the 4 hours to get to Indy, and I say, okay, so like, where am I staying? They're like, oh, the house that they gave us, like, turns out like there's only 3 bedrooms and there's 5 of us, so you and Carmelo are gonna have to share a room, the living room. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's totally fine, no problem. And they're like, oh yeah, and like we're gonna have to pay rent here. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm sure the stipend at the church is gonna take care of that. They're not paying us right now. There's not like anything in the budget at the moment. And I'm like, okay. So now I got to find a job. I get a job at Guitar Center, working there. I don't blame the church. I don't blame the folks or the people or anything. Circumstances were just different at that time. Things came up that they didn't plan. There was a lot of ambition, and there was a lot of promises that I genuinely believe, and I believe that they genuinely believe, that they wanted to keep and honor and uphold, that just weren't realistic, leading up to, at the time, it was 7 people coming from out of state to come to this church and basically replant it. So not upset about really all of that. It was upsetting at the time, and Carmelo did not handle it well at that time. It resulted in him moving back to Wisconsin. But now I didn't have my friend. I was at a church I didn't want to be at, in a state I didn't want to be in, with plans that got canceled and changed on me. Basically starting over from scratch to a Latin church, which what I didn't realize was still like pent-up trauma and pain from my parents' divorce that never really got addressed in the 8 years since I had gone to a Spanish church. So I'm sitting in Monument Circle, confused as heck, like, why'd you put me through all of this, God? Like, what's going on? Like, what is this? As I'm sitting there, trying to figure out why the heck God brought me to Indianapolis, it's September 21st, noonish. I remember the exact date of everything as this is all going on. I'm at Monument Circle, sitting there, people watching, and I believe that the Lord showed me a vision. Sky goes from completely clear and bright to like completely dark. Lights start turning on. Cracks start forming, starting from the steps of Monument Circle, going all across the city, all across the state. These cracks start opening up, and I see flickering lights underneath the surface all across the city, all across the state, I'm looking at all of this, confused, kind of freaking out because I know visions is not my spiritual gifting per se. So I'm thinking this is all in my head. But I looked to the heavens and I said, God, if this is you, I want to be a part of this. So after all that, I'm going through an entire year being at this church. A lot of things that I agree with, that I disagree with, things that I shot myself in the foot over, things that I realized I needed to just process and receive healing from. I am forever grateful to this church for dealing with me with all of my opinions and all of that because I had a lot of opinions. I wanted to essentially turn that Latino church into like another Western Christian church, which that just wasn't built in its DNA. Instead, the Lord was showing me quite the opposite, the beauty of what it was to operate in a Latino church. That style of worship. And I didn't realize how much I missed being in that world. Because for 8 years, I was used to 30-minute worship sets, 30-minute sermons, and you go home after that. But here, it's like we're worshiping for an hour. Sometimes it's one song. We're just in that. Sometimes the sermon doesn't even happen. We're just going and we're going and we're going because the Lord is directing us to. I went from being confused and borderline kind of hating the church to like loving the church and loved being there. Loved dealing with all of the things that I was dealing with, the things that I was walking through. It was at that point, right when I learned to love it, where I was living, the church, the people, where God began shifting the focus, saying, okay, now it's time for you to leave. Like I just got okay being here. Like, what the heck, man? Not to keep going with the crazy long story, but through intense conversations, circumstances, the Lord made it very clear that my time at that church was coming to an end. They transitioned me out. But unlike most times, when you leave a church, you go to another church. But because I was at this church so often, I was at this church 5 days a week. I didn't go visit other churches in that year that I was there. I didn't even know about other churches in that year that I was there. It was just home, work, church, and nothing else. The only time I really knew about other churches was when I was working at Guitar Center, and I would like talk with other worship leaders and pastors about like gear they needed, and I would get like little glimpses of like what other churches did and how they function around here. Also, I got fired from Guitar Center before I left the church. So now I'm walking through that. I'm in this new home. I'm in this new season where I'm looking for a home church. I'm door dashing, listening to sermons, worship music, devotionals, Bible studies, while I'm driving around delivering people's food. And I just Google churches and I just go to a Sunday service and I can immediately clock who's the worship leader, just the way that either they dress or the way that they're talking or the way that I could see them like operating on like a platform. I'm like, that's the guy I'm going to go talk to. So I go up and talk to them, introduce myself, get coffee with them. They find out I drum. They look at my Instagram. They're like, yeah, we want you to play Sundays with us. Okay, just skip the audition. Got it. Cool. So I start playing at all these bunch of churches like all across Indianapolis. And as I'm playing at these churches, I began observing. I'm no one special. I'm a fly on the wall. I'm seeing people that I don't know. And I'm really almost like pinpointing folks around the congregations that really want to lean deeper into what the Lord is doing through worship, through the Holy Spirit, and just not feeling freedom or the space to do so. And I began speaking up and addressing those things that I noticed to the worship leaders, to pastors, and a lot of them began saying essentially the same thing, which is either it's not our culture at the time, or we don't have the space quite, or we're moving there, but we're not just quite there yet. We're trying to bring the whole congregation with us first before we lean into that. And none of what they said really sat right with me and didn't really kind of sit right with my spirit, to the point where like I just started getting sad in this living room, which looked very different then than it does now. I began weeping and crying and praying for all these churches, for all of Indiana, for people I didn't know, that they be met where they're at, that the Lord do something at these churches, or if not there, do something where people can like have that freedom, have that permission, have that ability, that capacity to go deeper. And if they don't know what that is, that someone teach them what this is. I was like, we have to do something. Like, again, it felt almost like that itch I couldn't scratch again. And I would talk with other musicians, other worship leaders, people, like you guys early on when I was first meeting y'all about this. And a lot of them began sharing the same sentiments, the same ideas, began praying with me the same way. And one of these people in particular, Julio, told me, hey, Juan, this sounds like a ministry. Like, have you considered like that? And I was like, oh, I mean, no, but like someone else could do it. I'm a drummer. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Julio was like, nah, bro, Pray about it. And also, get back on social media because we need you back on there. I was off social media for a little bit. I was on a social media fast. Yeah, almost
It was a full year.
Almost a full year. It was 9 months. 9 months off of social media because I didn't have a church at the time. And because I still had struggles with myself, with past, things I was still navigating through. I didn't have a community. I didn't have any accountability. I don't want nothing to get in my way of this right now. So when he told me to get back on there and I got back on, there was a lot of content that was starting to pop up about Christian influencers and Christian TikTok, Christian Reels and all this. And I was like, okay, maybe there's something with this. I think I told the rest of the story in the very first episode, so I'm not going to hark on this too much. But then after that, after our first worship gathering, and if you want to go back to the first episode and hear about all that, the origin, you can. I'm still feeling not qualified. Even to this day, there have been some moments where either past hurt, past sin tries to creep back into my life, past temptations try to get a grip on me. Sometimes they've overcome, and I've had to address those things, and I've had to have really difficult conversations with pastors and worship leaders. The Lord has still met me and used those very people to affirm me, even when I feel unworthy of doing all of this with you guys. I mean, the fact that y'all are here, and I get to do life with you guys like this, I don't take lightly. One thing that I did not mention at that other podcast when I talked about my testimony was a really big prayer that I had growing up. My parents were very strict, being very involved in their faith and where we grew up in the hood. My parents just flat out didn't let me invite people over. I had a lot of friends growing up. So I always prayed, to God, especially during my parents' divorce. God, I want to have friends. I want to have people that get me, that understand me. And growing up, I was always told that I was weird, that I was too much, that I was strange, and all my other insecurities about my height or whatever. I didn't care too much, but it was my ADHD and the certain mannerisms and my personality that was just something that affected me a lot because they were right. That is biologically something that makes me different. So I was like, God, I want people to get me. I want people to understand me. People that I can be myself, that I can be a goofball, that I can not have to apologize to be myself for, that I don't have to fear being too much with. And then when I got invited to Indiana, and I was around people my age that were worshipful, that were goofy and all these things, and I was like, God, is this it? And when things just didn't quite pan out that first year, that was the thing that I grieved the most, especially when Carmelo left. And there were times where I'd just be in my room, just putting on worship music, and I just, low volume, I just cry and worship with myself. And I would say, God, I want this. Selfishly, maybe. I want to have people that I can do this with, that I can do life like this with. But if I don't get that, this is enough. And that was I think month 6 or 7. trying to bring levity. It was around month 7 that I had that conversation with the Lord, and just my worship got different. My love for the local church got different. One thing that I thank God most for when starting Yada House is the people that we get to do this with, man. The conversations that we have sometimes, with all of you here, and the weirdos that we bring, man. We talk about all kinds of stuff, whatever it could be. That's an answered prayer, man. The fact that I can be goofy, that I can have dumb arguments with all of you guys and a bunch of other friends that we made along the way that I call my ding dongs, that's an answered prayer. If Yada House goes away, if it disappears, if I still have the friends that I've made along the way, you can laugh, it's okay. You'd still have us. Yeah, dude, man. I'm so thankful to God that none of the things that I prayed for God answered, that none of the desires that I had came to pass, that every single plan that I made for myself, that I even made declaring it was for him, did not happen, because now I get to do life with you guys, man. So, oh, also another thing I wanted to mention too about my name that not a lot of people know about. You know,
It means John Paul.
John Paul, yeah.
John Paulson.
John Paulson. My parents, you still can't get over that. You hate it?
I told you that.
Do you want me to stop?
What kind of name is Ding Dong?
Our ding dong.
It's so funny, but yeah. So my parents' name, and the name that I have, Juan Pablo. That's my full legal name. Backstory on that, and backstory on the craziness that is your boy. After my parents got married and my mom moved from Guatemala to the States, they tried to have kids for a while. Nothing was working. They were like, why can't we have kids? Like, there must be something going on here. They tried all kinds of things. And when they went to the doctors to try to see what was going on, they did like a weird ultrasound test on my mom's womb and her uterus. And they come to realize that my mom's uterus, she was 23 at the time, was at the developmental stage of a 13-year-old girl. Biologically, she was unable to conceive. But my mama, man, she was like, no, I'm going to have a child. Like, I want to have a kid. So she kept praying and praying, involving family from Guatemala, here in the States, everywhere else in the world, into this prayer. And there was an aunt who also operated in the prophetic here in the States, who was praying from my mom's womb. As she began praying in Spanish, she says, "No, nothing to nothing. In your womb, you will carry a man of God that will affect his generation. He will have the essence of John the Baptist and the Apostle Paul. And that will be his name. Juan Pablo. John Paul." And my mom, believing it, went to the doctors, I think it was like a month later, because that's when they scheduled it next. And sure enough, there I was in the ultrasound. But then the doctor started noticing that there was like a weird thing involving like my development. He only saw with kids that either have like cerebral palsy, that showed early signs of like autism, things like that. And the doctor recommended to my mom to abort me 9 times. And my mama said no. They said, okay, if you want this baby to be born and you want to be healthy, try to be healthy. You have to go on a special diet and you have to be bedridden these months that you are pregnant. She said, okay. She did not move from bed for months. Only ate a bunch of nachos and salsa from a local Mexican restaurant called Pepe's. And to the point where this restaurant like added just the chips and salsa as a like pickup order option to the restaurant because of my mom. They'd be like, oh, my dad's name Joey. Joey, the special order? Like, yeah, special order. A giant bag about this big of like chips and a liter of salsa for my mom. And then
Is that why you dance around so
Sounds
much?
wonderful.
right? Yes. So,
Can I get this doctor's note?
unfortunately, the restaurant shut down 2 years ago.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. indeed.
Pepe's?
Pepe's.
R.I.P. Pepe's.
R.I.P. Pepe's Mexican
Womp
restaurant. Womp womp.
Say it, Katie. Because I need
R.I.P.
validation.
Pepe's.
R.I.P. Pepe's. You were in a great restaurant off of Green Bay Road in Waukegan, Illinois.
I was enjoying
Anyway,
We're not
so
on the same
none of us are. Yeah,
But
Hunger
we are.
Games, military. So after months and months of like my mom trying to make sure that I survive, she couldn't hold me anymore. And at 7 months, I was delivered. The same doctor that did the ultrasound, the same doctor that recommended to abort me, was the one that delivered me. And when he saw that I came out healthy as a horse, doctor bewildered, seeing me, and said, "This is not the baby that I saw in the ultrasound." My mom, in pain from giving birth, laughing at the doctor with her very broken Spanish, says, "You don't know my God." Well, that's my whole story, guys, with all kinds of detours and everything.
We're glad you're here.
Thanks.
You're our special ding dong.
I can't. Can we rename
Ain't no Twinkies
all
or
of our Yonder
ho-hos.
House chats to
Just ding
our
dongs.
special ding dongs?
You like the Tiger King when the lady is like, Hello, all you kittens and whatever. We just intro all of our podcasts with. Welcome, all you ding dongs. Yada House loving ding dongs.
What's that conversation going on over
Welcome
there?
to Ding Dong Nation.
I want my phone because I want to we have, so this is a beautiful segue. We have our very first Yada House nights coming up on January 30th, last Friday of every month at 7 p.m. in this house. So we have our volunteer team, and I was telling her I really want to no context change the name to our special ding dongs, and not respond to any texts, and they'll have no idea what's going on unless they watch this podcast.
I feel like I would be the only one that could. I guess you could do it too and not respond because you two have to respond to text.
I would love to just not explain it at all.
You could. In fact, you could change it if you want. You could be the one to change it.
Listen,
I
when
don't
you guys
know
get
how
this
to do it.
podcast,
That's why I'm gonna give you my phone.
you're gonna know why.
Hello, team. Ding dong.
And that's a wrap.
And that's a wrap for this episode of the podcast. We hope you have a fantastic day, night, week, month, year, and a great life. Come to the Yada House nights every last Friday of the month, starting at 7 o'clock here in this house. We hope to see you there.
We love you, ding dongs.
Thank you, guys.
And that's a wrap.
That's a wrap. Bye.